Hey everybody, good morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips after ages. Ages away. Do you want to come up? No? Just waggy tail. You're just going to get a waggy tail this morning. Hi, I'm your host, Anne, and we have disembodied allergy-ridden hands. Quindy, me too, Quindy. I'm thinking about closing my window already. I'm all stuffed up. And then we've got, supposedly we still have a Justin, I guess, because I haven't heard any different, and a John, maybe somewhere out there in the ether. And we've got a Keekster, but she doesn't want to come up. Come here, Keekster. Bubba. Back up. Bubba, come up. Good girl. Yay, you even get a Kiki today. Yay! Good girl. Good girl. No, Justin. Sadness. Kiki says, hello, everybody. Yes, did you see my post? I made a post, I put it on the Discord, too. Kiki discovered snow. You discovered snow, Bubba, didn't you? Yeah, good girl. All right, you can go. Good girl. No teeth. The bad thing about the vacation is that we didn't bring a pen for her at night, and so she was able to jump up on us really early in the morning to wake us up. And she got into the mouthy, like if we wouldn't wake up, if we just turned our backs on her, like sometimes she'd be good, and sometimes she decided she was going to try to play with us to try to get us to wake up. So next vacation, that's the Reaper road trip. She's going to get a pen in the hotel room. She's not going to like it, but she's going to get one anyway. So, yeah, it was pretty intense. It was 2 days up and 2 days back, and then, of course, Mount Rainier trip was mostly a day of driving, too, because it's about 2 hours from Seattle, and then we also decided to wait in line and drive up to Sunrise in the park so that we could get a decent sight of Mount Rainier, thank God. We did, because it was amazing, but that was a long day of driving too. So out of the past 6 days, I've had 5 days trapped in a car, and my back knows it. So I'm a little twingy today, so I'm probably going to have to do some stretches. Hi, Raceland. Thank you for the resub. Ooh, you almost have your sub-anniversary. Awesome. Very cool. Thank you. But yeah, I love, I mentioned on my Discord, but I've been honestly waiting 30 years to get back to Mount Rainier. Like, seriously, have been like, I need to get back to the mountain kind of thing. Because I like big rocks, and I cannot lie. I'll need a stretch break, at least one. But yeah, just so, for those who have never seen Mount Rainier, it is worth going to see. Cars included for scale. That's me standing across a parking lot looking up at a gigantic freaking mountain. Mount Rainier is 14,400 feet, I believe. So, if you like mountains, it's more than pretty. Like, that's the thing you never capture, right? With art, you never capture, like, the real feel of a painting when you take a picture of it. And when you're in the mountains, like, nothing prepares you for standing there in front of that thing. Like, the sense of the mass of it. It fills the world. Like, it fills your entire view. There's nowhere that's not mountain when you look at Rainier from that particular vantage. Like, it's massive. It's at least, the mountains around it are 5,000-6,000 feet. So it towers at least 7,000 to 8,000 feet above them. Yeah. So when you get up there close to it, oh, good. Yeah, you're in your cherries. Good. When you get up close to it, it just like, I don't know. I always feel like the gigantic mass of it is just like dominates. It's a fantastic mountain. It's my favorite. It's my favorite mountain essentially. And like I said, I like big rocks. Probably my favorite rocks are at Yosemite, but except for Rainier, which is my favorite big rock. But yeah. All right, yeah, let me do a quick stretch, guys. Let me do a quick stretch. Today my back is going to be, and I took a muscle relaxer last night because I had to. I also had my first Kiki-related injury, guys. She didn't outdo Blazy, who gave me a concussion. But we were taking a break. We had to go stop at a grocery store to pick up a little bit of lunch, and there was a steep bank, and I needed her to go do her business. I'm gonna do a fold, and. Yeah, so after she did her business and I was like, good girl, she jumped off the bank. And I got twisted around and I fell. There was no way. Like, you have that moment of, oh, crap, where you just know you're going down and you know that you can't catch it. Because there was a lip a lip on the bank, and so it caught my I couldn't adjust. I couldn't actually move my feet to catch myself, so I went over. So I have a very, very brilliantly bruised hip, and I have a strained neck because I caught myself. Thank God. Hey, thank God for CrossFit, guys. Thank God for core strength. So I did not bash my head into the asphalt, and I did not put my back out. But it's been a little tweaky, so I definitely put some pressure on everything. Yeah. No, I'm not feeling bad. Well, okay, my neck has definitely improved since yesterday. Yeah, me too. It's a big bruise. I really landed hard on my hip. My hip took the brunt of the impact, and then my hand. Yeah. So that was my first Kiki-related injury. It is sadly a side effect of having big dogs. I think almost every Shiloh Shepherd owner I know has a injury. I have gotten, there've been broken bones. Like it's serious. So when you have a giant dog and that giant dog does something unpredictable, yeah. So there we go. But I'm here. But I'll probably need a few little breaks to stretch. Yes. So meanwhile, let us see. What are we going to do today? I was working on the gold. Do you guys want to finish up? I think we might finish up the gold. I've got to get the gold on the... Although I kind of need... I'm going to do silver. Screw it. I'm going to do silver, and I'm going to try to remember my formula. Where is my magenta? And my yellow... I always try to remember this and then fail utterly. I do remember, however, that I needed a lot more magenta than I thought. Hey, Kodiak, I was just talking about dog-related injuries. 16 months. Yeah, I got my first Kiki-related injury. But she still can't match my last Shiloh, Blazy, Kiri's daughter, who actually gave me a concussion. Like, that one still takes the cake, and I hope never to exceed that one. Like, I really don't want a Shiloh-related injury. That's worse than that. All right, I'm going to put a big blob of blue in here. And then I'm going to put 3 big drops of red. Yeah, I fell. She jumped off a bank, and I couldn't move my feet because there was an edge on the bank, and it trapped my foot, and so I couldn't adjust to catch myself, so I went over. So I have a bruised hip and a strained neck. But I do not have a broken head or a broken back, although my back's a little twingy. So we'll have some stretch breaks today, and it should be fine. I'm going to put 3 drops of magenta, 1 big drop of cyan, and 1 drop of the yellow in, and we're going to see how that goes. I've mixed this color enough, but the problem is that there's always like a week between me mixing it, so I always forget. Keeks, you better be good or I'm going to exile you. Yeah, you don't want to be exiled. You do not, little lady. Do not want to be exiled. Oh, she went she went and laid down with this. Oh. Yeah, exactly, Cornico. Yeah, at least when you don't own big dogs, I'm going to put a preemptive drop of white in this as well so I can see what it looks like after I mix it together. But yeah, at least when you don't have big dogs, you aren't in danger of dog-related injuries. But yeah, big dogs, they move unpredictably, especially when they're younger. You're attached to them by a leash, which you must have. Oh, way too much blue. See? Yeah, that blue's just overwhelming. Although I'm very purple now, so I'm going to pop some yellow in. But yeah, dog-related injuries are a thing, especially when you own big dogs. So I'm happy I've been working out lately, and I'm certain that it helped. There we go. 1 drop, and there we go. We've got our blue. There we go. Ha-ha! That was the least pain. The least painful it's ever been to mix this color. I think we're okay. I think that's great. I think it's going to go. I think it's going to go well. All right, we're going to mix it over, transfer it over, and put a little bit of white in it. And see what I can do. It's kind of, it was blurple before, yes. But the yellow has neutralized it a little. I'm going to see if this is enough. I might need to add just a little bit more yellow. Yeah, I do need to add just a little bit more yellow. I'm a little bit too violet still. Spring-loaded, Pendrake? What the hell? That, I would never. Okay. Attached to my dog, I do not want something that's going to release. Because if I have something that's going to release, I don't care if I have to take the bruised hip. But if that thing released, she would have run right into traffic. No, never. Like, no way. I would rather take the hit than have my dog take a potentially fatal hit. That's a little bit, well, that's gray. Okay. There we go, it's a little better. But yeah, I've never heard of a spring-loaded release factor. Like, no way. That just seems like a very bad idea. Kiki would have been dead in traffic at least a few times by now if we had that. But yeah, no. And to be fair, she did make it to a year. I'm just going to put just a little bit more blue in this. She did make it to a year old without me having any injuries at all, so. But yeah, I just wasn't ready for her. Yeah, and it was right next to a busy highway too, so it was just not a good thing. It is what it is. Sometimes you have to take the dog and have her do her business because you have no other stops. But yeah. But I lived. And yeah, for those of you on my Patreon or my Discord, actually you can see this post even if you aren't a patron because I made it a public post. So yeah, if you go to patreon.com/paintingbig, you can see a photograph of Kiki on a snowdrift in the mountains because there were still snowdrifts. They got a lot of moisture and a lot of snow this past winter, and it took a long time, a very long time for it to melt at that altitude. So actually, when we were there, the wildflowers were as good as they would normally be in like March or April or May. Like, we had amazing wildflowers on this trip. That could vary in length. Oh, unwind. Yeah, I'd never want that either. I mean, it was a 6-foot leash. The problem, Pendrake, I don't know if you've ever owned a big dog. But the problem is, the more leash you give them, the more torque, the more power they can bring to bear on the end of the leash. So a leash that extends to take up slack seems kind of faulty to me with a big dog because it's just going to give that dog extra room to hit the end of that leash with even more power. Like, the best control that I have over Kiki is when she's on a 3 or 4 foot lead, or even you could do a 1 foot traffic lead if you wanted. But more leash is not a benefit. And honestly, if she had been on a shorter leash, she wouldn't have been able to jump off the top, right? She wouldn't have been able to jump off the slope. So kind of on me there. But yeah, it's longer leads are not generally what I recommend for really big dogs because they have a lot of weight and they can get going very fast. Even when they jump, when they leap into action, that's a lot of weight and power hitting the end of that lead. So the more distance they have to rev themselves up, so to speak, the harder they're going to hit the end of the lead. And the more strain it's going to put on your body trying to hold them. Yeah, I would think so, Quindy. I didn't know you were an ex-vet tech. But yeah, my gut reaction to the thought of an unwinding leash is like, yeah. Yeah, because then she would have hit it even harder and dragged me. Just not good. Not good, folks. But yeah. So some things, I mean, there are all sorts of pet care products out there, right, that you look at and you're like, oh, that makes sense. That would be good. Until you own, like, the dog that would really be a nightmare on that thing. And Kiki's not a nightmare. Kiki's definitely, like, yeah, people with big untrained dogs. Yeah, I see. And to me, having experienced big dogs, you know, and my dogs are not like Schutzhund trained, right? There's no way if I call Kiki into a heel, like, she's mostly ignoring me. Unless it's like, you know, things are boring. Okay, mom, I'll heel, right? We're not proofed to that point. So she's not untrained, but she's not a nightmare. But she's like, definitely has her moments where she's just going to have selective hearing. And this is a shepherd thing. Absolutely. It's a Shiloh thing too. Yeah, yep. Yeah, those retractable leads. Not for big dogs for sure. Um, but yeah, so I really don't want any way to give my dog more control of the situation. For sure. All right, so let's put some highlight. We had to put that big round highlight at the top. Oh, it would help if I got in focus. Man, I'm out of practice, guys. I'm out of practice. Sorry. Maybe I did addle my head. So we're putting a big round highlight up here around the top of the shoulder blade. We're going to do it all around this nice little emblem that she's got. We're going to put a little bit of a shadow under it. I do need to maybe accentuate that on this side. Yeah. I mean, I've had a dog I could walk on a retractable lead just fine. But, you know, Blazy was fine on retractable lead on anything. She was not a big puller. But Kiki is a puller. I don't know if it was the outcross or what. But Kiki pulls. Like, and lately she's been wanting to do pulling more, like on vacation. And David lets her get away with it more than I do, and that's becoming a problem. So now I'm gonna have to double down and make sure on our walk today that she learns that if she pulls, I stop. And then I walk backward. It's going to be really monotonous to retrain her on that. But sometimes around 1-year-old, though, they do forget everything they know. They hit adolescence. Like, she's essentially a dog teenager right now. And so she is every bit like, she's just like that. She's going to test the boundaries. She's going to forget the stuff we've trained her on. Or we're going to have to reinforce it. So... Yeah, the thing about retractable leads is that owners get them when their dogs aren't well behaved. And really, the retractable leads are most useful for dogs that are very well behaved. That's the problem, right? I had a moment with Kiki when she was younger where I almost got one of those harnesses with the clip on the front that help with pulling dogs. Because essentially, when the dog pulls it, their rear just swings around, and they're you know they have a hard time to really put their chest into it to pull you. And I actually decided not to get one, and the reason was that it was something that I was reaching for to take the work out of my hands, something that I wouldn't have to think about. And I decided that I didn't want that sort of relationship with Kiki. Like, that it was more, even if it was more work, I preferred to actually work with her on her pulling problem instead of trying to get some passive solution that she never had to think about and I never had to think about. Hey, dog father. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Agent Marvel. It's fine. I mean, it's just not great, I think, for big dogs. And you're right, you've got to keep a grip on it, right? But I've had one and I've used it. It's cool if you really want to go out in like the countryside and give your dog a lot of range so that they can sniff all around them, like, right? Because otherwise you've got to handle just a regular long lead and it's a kind of a pain that way. Yeah. I got pulled over and got a Kiki related injury for dog father on vacation. That's why this came up. She jumped off of a steep slope that was the only place we could take her up to potty. She essentially went up and did her business, but then she jumped off it. I was facing her, but my heels were against a curb, so I couldn't actually move my left leg to catch myself, so I went over. Like you do with big dogs. Right, exactly. Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's nobody... Those kind of harnesses are... I mean, to be fair, they work very well for some dogs, and if you actually combine it with training, it can be a good aid, right? To kind of teach your dog that pulling doesn't reward them with what they want. But I was afraid it was just too. I was just going to depend on it as a crutch, like if I got it, and so I decided to try to train Kiki the hard way instead. We just need to go back to basics. Because with my back and with my everything, I don't want her pulling, so. David handled her in the park mostly because she's just too much of a handful with too much strange stuff around, so. Where's my blue liner? I don't know where it went. It's around, but I don't know where it went. There's a gray liner. I'll use Death Knight. Death Knight with a little bit of walnut. Yeah, I have a big bruise and a strained neck, but the neck's getting better. Yeah. So we were talking about dog-related injuries, disobedience, and equipment. That's all we got on this topic, but it's cool. It's cool. But yeah, it's just training a dog is work. Some dogs make it easier for you than others. Kiki is very impulsive. She's a very impulsive dog, and she's strong. Very strong, very muscular dog. So it makes it difficult. But yeah, I'm gonna have to start the old regimen of the whole we stop when you pull. David doesn't have the patience for it. He's just gonna walk faster, which is what she wants probably. But I can't do that, so she's gonna learn that with Mama she can't do that. Oh yeah, dog training. Yeah, I found that neutering never made much of a difference. It may make a difference as far as like removing the drive when there's a female dog around, but other than that, all the dogs I knew that the owners like neutered them to try to get a handle on behavior is like they were like, why didn't this work? But of course there are other reasons to neuter. Yeah, it's funny. It's like, well, the one couple I was like, you already have behavior issues. You have to address the behavior issues. Just getting the dog neutered isn't going to magically solve your behavior issues. It was funny. Yeah, I told David he should try ski joring with her, which is when you go up on skis, cross-country skis, with your dog in a pull harness, and your dog pulls you through the snow. Although with Kiki, it's just going to be, oh, cool, Agent Marvel. Is it on Facebook or is it on Insta? Most other areas, yeah. But yeah, I think Kiki would probably just pull us through bushes if we tried ski joring with her. But David might think it was fun. She'd need to be better trained than she is, I think. But then she is only one. And in many ways, Keeks is good, like in many, many ways. All right, I've got my Death Knight Black. I'm just going to be using that for shading here. Liners are nice when you're doing NMM shadows because they're easier to thin. Because they're already a little translucent. So when you have an easier to thin paint, you can build up darks easier. Yeah, she framed every scroller. Insta? Okay. I just need a little bit more of a dark here. I've got a little bit of one sketched in, but you see that dark coming in there now. Needed a little bit more. Didn't have quite enough. But yeah, Keeks is good in many ways. Now it's fine tuning, right? Like this dog, this vacation, took a hike in the mountains, encountered her first snow and her first like mountain streams, went on her first ferry boat ride with all that entails, with the giant horn honking over her head and the vibration and the motion, you know, and all the other stuff and the people and the crowds and walking through the ferry station, all this. And for the most part, pulled it all off great. Whoa, Miniatures Den. Thank you. Thank you so much for the raid. That's right, it's Luca Day, isn't it? I came back on Luca Day. We are just talking about my recent trip. But yeah, Kiki did a lot of stuff she had never done before on this trip and mostly came through it, like, except for waking us up early because she could jump on the bed. And wanting to, like, play bite me every morning. Oof. Wow. 8 hours, huh? Crazy. So yeah, I'm essentially filling in. We're getting both of these shoulder pads done, so I can get the back of the arm. I'm done with the NMM. I want to be done with it, so I'm just like, it's NMM time. Let's just get it done because Cathy's almost finished. At least her basic. We'll have to figure out what I want to do for her base. Well, let's talk. Yeah, let me finish up the shoulder pads, and then we'll talk about the sword. This is actually a pretty simple sword to NMM. But yeah, we went up to the mountains, went to Mount Rainier National Park, saw a gigantic dormant volcano. But yeah, overall, like Kiki, like staying in the car while we were like eating dinner. Oh, she also got her first like sit while we go to a restaurant and be good. As far as like we went out for lunch on Sunday, which was David's mom's birthday. We went to see Memorial, Japanese memorial in on Bainbridge Island, where they had essentially collected people up and forced them into camps during World War II. It was a really nice memorial, beautiful area, but you know, yeah, she had to. We'd gone to a museum. She had to learn to sit. There were lots of other dogs around because there was a little art market outside of the museum. And it was right there, and there were all sorts of dogs. She only barked once at one of them, and otherwise she settled under the table and was a good girl. So in many ways, I know I only mentioned Kiki's terrible idiosyncrasies, but in many ways she is turning into a very good dog. Like, give her another year, maybe 2. At age 3, I think she's going to be stellar. A little bit more calmness. I'm going to hit all of these little rivets here. When you've got something this small, just paint it dark and then go and hit it with a highlight. I'll get a little closer. Because you don't have enough room to do anything other than that on these little rivets. But yeah. Overall, the Kiki will be a good girl. Alrighty. Just going to pop the whites up here. Remember, you got to go up to pure white if you want that shine to really come through. So we got to really pop in some white in appropriate places on the shoulder pad to show the light. Got to hit this upper edge as well. And I got to bring up some of this. But yeah, Kiki was so happy to be home last night. Like, she almost fell over. She was like, she ran into the backyard and just ran around, like buzzed around in circles. She's happy to be back to her routine. It was funny. Like, I think she is more of a homebody dog. Like, there are dogs who are just like all about the adventures. Like, they will just want to go on adventures with you as long as they're with you. And that was Blazy. Like, she was my, like, we'd go on the road shows. She was perfectly happy. Just being there. Did well in the car. Kiki is motion sick, so I have to give her Dramamine or Bonine before we go on the road. So that makes it a little less pleasant for her. And she just really, she loves her routine and she likes being home. So although we're doing a lot of road trips with her this year, I think I'm probably going to scale back on them a bit. Because when she's, if she's going to be, you know, not feeling well in the car and she doesn't really enjoy it, I'm not going to, as long as I can get a dog sitter, I'm not going to force her to go on a trip. But yeah, so one of the last things I do when I'm doing NMM, by the way, is I'll always have it up to a white highlight, but I usually have to repop my white. Like, I have to take a final pass and just, like, really make sure I'm bringing the white up to, like, boom, up to a really poppy white. Then we've got a little bit more highlight to go down here. Because as I finish more of it, I'll see that my white is just kind of a little bit faded and needs a little bit more. It almost always needs a little bit more, especially because I do work with thinned paint, so I'm not putting a super thick blob of white on in the first place. So I usually need to adapt a bit and then to reinforce it. But yeah, I'm almost kind of like regretting deciding to bring Kiki to ReaperCon, but it is what it is, so I'm just going to rock it. Because I don't think we can't find anybody at this late date, so. So yeah, Keeks will go to Texas with me. And I'll probably still bring her to places. Oh, we gotta do something about under the butt of that bottle. It's a totally dead area. Let's do a little bit of shading. So now I'm back to work. My editor got the in book news. My editor got my book back to me with his edits. So today I start, after I finish some Patreon work, I'm gonna dig in and see what kind of edits he did on my book. So that's exciting. Oh yes, but I only got him for Hawaii Pendrake. It wasn't enough time to get him for ReaperCon. Really good house sitter, dog sitters, like they're usually booked up. You need to book them in advance, and so I couldn't just I managed to get him for October, but I wasn't going to get him for like September, and especially not early September. And October was definitely the more urgent because October she absolutely can't come with us, right? It's Hawaii. So that was the most important booking. All right, there we go. That's a nice shoulder pad. So just a little bit of light on the bottom there, a little bit of shadow. Could put more shadow on. But yeah, so this is the next step in the book. I need to go through, make my changes for my editor, and then it goes to my proofreader and my beta readers. And then I get their notes back. And then we are, I'll probably do one last edit. About to do a big tuning edit. I have notes still that I need to execute on for this edit. Sadly, I can't get my professional beta reader this time. She was too booked. I knew I should have booked her earlier, but I didn't want to book her until the book was actually done. And that proved to be too late. She won't have time to do a pro beta read. She's an editor, but she also does just a professional beta read on the side, which is well worth it because she still applies her editor brain to your book. And it doesn't cost nearly as much. But yeah, too much. So just popping the white here, and I'm going to bring up more light down here. But yeah, so more editing on book 2. I kind of took this month off from doing any raw writing, rough draft writing, to figure out what I was going to work on next. I have some time now before I have to. I'm not planning for book 3 to be out until probably February. 6 months, because I need to write it. I have it in my head, but I need to let it percolate a little longer. I need to reinforce my darks here. So So I can get that light up in there, and I'll probably do that lower edge. Yeah, I did timeline mapping for book 2 because there was a lot of, I had 3 different points of view, and I needed to make them all line up at the end, Polly. So I did that. But yeah, book 3 is set 10 years after, because the first 2 books are their own story. They're self-contained, but the other books are going to be set in this world. They're going to feature a lot of the same characters. Each book will feature, you know, like this next book will feature a secondary character from the first 2 plus a main character from the first 2, and a lot of like secondary, like kind of NPC type characters from the first one. And same with the second book. It's another one of the main characters then with the secondary character. So then everybody gets their own spotlight. There we go. That's better. Well, the thing I learned, Polly, honestly, is the best way for me to do it was to essentially work backward from the climax. I worked backward from the finale of the book. I'm like, okay, at the finale of the book, everybody is here and together. Then I worked it backwards to make sure that there were enough days, you know, so you weren't having a character here come up to that after 1 day and the other character took 3 days to get there, stuff like that. It's a pain in the butt. It's why I just bought a plotting software with timeline generator, because then I can do this from the beginning next time. So we're just popping more white on that. So you can see the difference when you pop it up right there as opposed to there. It's more dull. I bought Plotter. I liked that it had a lot of different plotting frameworks in it to play around with. And I liked how its timelines were generated. And I can also do a chart that shows the different books and the characters, like with color coded for the characters that are in each book. I figure I'll be able to like screenshot that and use it as a graphic on my website. I've been thinking about it for a while. I don't need it for plotting. I'm more of a pantser. I'm more of an intuitive writer than a plotter. Much as I love working with structures and reading about different structures for books and ways to build them out, when it comes down to it, I am happiest when I do my freeform, and only then do I try to fit it into a framework. So my process now, it wasn't for the first couple books, but what my process looks like now that I'm kind of getting happy with is I get the idea for a book. I toss it around in my head like a long time. I think about it. If it still sticks around and I'm still excited about it, I'll start seeing scenes for it. I'll write down those scenes. Then I'll sit down and once I have enough, I'll sit down and I'll really mind map the book. Like I'll just mind map it. I'll just make thought bubbles and plot and character and all that kind of thing. Once I've got that, then I can plug it into a plot program, or in my case, I use Save the Cat, which is a screenwriting framework. Oh, yay, Quindy. You remember to turn it off. But yeah, so then I'll plug it into an outline. But the outline is like, it's still fluid. Like I've learned that the more I think about stuff, the better ideas I will get. And so even though I've for the sake of convenience, I've plugged my ideas into this plotting structure, if I get an idea halfway through writing that is better than the idea I started with, I will absolutely redo my beat sheet. Absolutely. So I still essentially, even though it's there, it's not like a stuck in stone outline. It is, it's just a starting point. It's just to help me remember what I need to do. It's almost like a to-do list. It's almost like a punch list. My outline is almost like a punch list, so I don't forget that I need to resolve this thread or that thread. But when it comes to the way that stuff in the book actually comes about, it just pops into my head a lot, you know? Probably the most fun of writing a book so far for me is the fact that I just let my characters talk and I just write what they say. And the conversations that come out of it are often much better. Like the spontaneous stuff that pops up in my head is so much better than me just writing boring dialogue, right? So when I'm really into it, then and my characters are really talking, and I'm not even thinking about it, I'm just like, what are they going to say here? Well, what would she say if he said that? You know, it's all great. I love it. But yeah, I'm definitely more of an intuitive writer than I thought I was. Like I was totally intuitive when I first wrote these books. I just wrote them. But then I spent a very long time being dissatisfied with my plotting, and so I started learning screenwriting. And then I thought, oh, well, maybe I've been a planner all along. But it turns out, no. I really am an intuitive writer. I just like to have that little bit of structure to be my to-do list. My book to-do list. And it'll keep me on timeline as well, so. Because otherwise I definitely have a tendency to forget time. Which is really easy in fairy tale. Something based on a folktale or fairy tale, right? Because there really is no sense of time in a lot of fairy tales. You have all these adventures and it only took you 3 days or something, right? Or even 1 day. All right, so I got more of my shading in. Now I'm developing these elbow pads, and then we're gonna go. They have to talk to somebody who has witnessed it or heard about it, Pendrake. There's an exception. One of my trolls. There are scrying is a thing in this world, so you can learn about things happening distantly if you have that particular spell set. If you know how to scry, or if that's one of your things that you've picked up. But it is fairy tale magic, so it's a combination of learned and innate, essentially. Because certain creatures have innate powers, and then, you can have a bit of innate magic as a human, but you can also just learn some things without having innate magic. So there's a couple of different ways you can work it. Wow. Okay, so much tiny detail on this arm guard. I'm seeing rivets and bands. I'm going to try to hit all the little rivets. This is going to be a very difficult one. Because I'm seeing just tiny little things. And I've got these bands here. I kind of feel like I need to just make a highlight going all the way down. If you can't see details, or you're just there's just too much in here for you to really make it out, then at least make the light consistent. But yeah, unless you have a dream walking, or you have scrying and the magical ability. Being a sorcerer in this world really conveys a lot of control and information. Learning to manipulate magic. Yeah, there's a lot of detail here that's very, very hard to see. Yeah, but this world doesn't have many cities. Remember, it's based on fairy tales, so a lot of the beings in this land are like animal lords, right? They are not all social. The bears are very widespread. Unless you have a messenger. And there's been a lot of turmoil, so the normal avenues of communication, as far as merchants or traveling entertainers, there's been a lot of stuff that has disrupted those networks. But the bears are very insular, and so very isolated. And when you do meet someone in this world, they're not always your friend. So, you like the bear lore? Cool, Zachariah. There's a lot of it in book 3. Or there will be. There's more in book 2, too. Honestly, it's a fairy tale world, Pendrake. There's no... The main world, the world that the mundane world, the human world, the non-magical world, corresponds to an early 1800s Europe-ish. But the sideways world, the world that they all get sucked into, the world of magic, that has its own stuff. Yeah, there are spikes on the back of her gauntlet here, but again, they're very tiny. It's very hard to hit. So I'm going to just paint them dark. And then try to go over them with some light. Yeah, the trolls may get their own. The trolls may get their own trilogy. I haven't decided. You'll find out why when you get to the end of book 2 and see where that leaves the trolls right now. You'll also learn a lot more about the trolls' societal structure in book 2. You get a closer look at them as a race and as a society. From a couple of different vantage points. But yeah, I like trolls. I've always liked trolls. So my trolls are kind of a cross between like Shadowrun trolls and like D&D, like kind of like if you could have a half troll entity. Although they're kind of tiefling-ish, I guess. If you had to compare a D&D race to them, kind of, except I guess the other they're a lot like changeling trolls as far as fae. Like they're just bigger than human, larger than human, but not necessarily bulkier. It all depends on their lineage. They're very much a mashup of a lot of different races and societies. Some of them even have human blood in them. So yeah, I'm spending a lot of time just trying to figure out where all the details are in these gloves and highlight and bring the light down. I need to hit it on this side too. The front, that was much easier. Yeah, these books I'm not into technology with these books. I have to think about tech level in my next series, the cozy fantasy, because it's very kind of neo. In parts it can be almost neo-Victorian. There's definitely, I have to figure out where technology really, like what era I'm really doing with that, like who's got what as far as that goes. I don't mind a magical world with some tech in it, so trying to figure out how Victorian I want it. Don't want it to be steampunk. Don't want electric lights, but there could be some interesting things in it. All right, so there, and then we're getting there, and now I need to punch up those highlights again. This is all like, there is gossip, and it's carried, actually the foxes are huge gossip mongers. If anybody in this world is the one carrying news from place to place, it's the foxes. Nobody likes them, but everybody wants to know what they have to say. But yeah, the problem with the Lands of Magic right now is that, except for, there are a couple of cities, but in general, everybody is very spread out. Think about just vast tracts of wilderness where there's just like, you know, an isolated hamlet or village, or, you know, and maybe they just aren't anywhere near, like the next hamlet or village is the next point. But the thing is, Pendrake, in my world, at least in the magical world, humans left. The majority of the humans left, abandoned this world long time ago. That's how the mortal world came to be. They didn't want magic, they rejected it, and they found a way to leave and create their own reality, their own new world. Or at least that's what the stories say. And that's what the creation myth on page 1 is. Part of it. There are storm eagles. There are ravens. There's just none in this particular story. There's plenty of cool stuff. I haven't gone into the birds. The birds are for a future book. Except the storm eagles. The storm eagles are allied to the bears, so I didn't feel too bad mixing them in. You'll find out. You'll read that story, or at least part of it, in this new book, in book 2. Storm eagles being very close to thunderbirds, by the way. But the birds are... When magic infused this world, it hit the creatures of the skies first. So the birds are some of the oldest, most magical birds are some of the oldest beings. Which takes, I believe, also draws heavily from Celtic mythology. Where some of the wisest and oldest magical beings are birds. I always liked that. But yeah, giant eagles are very token, but I always loved them. So, but I love thunderbirds more. So we have a different breed. There's a lot in this world. Okay, so now I'm popping white highlights all down the back. I'm trying to correct. I'm looking at the overall thing. I have to deal with this. Let's deal with that, and then we're going to do the sword. But yeah, this is a very fanciful fantasy. This is definitely not the world. Like, if I ever get around to writing my epic fantasy Pendrake, then you'll see some serious, like, world building as far as technology and communication and how it happens, and a very, you know, settled world with a big infrastructure and things like that. But this world is very average. The humans were one of the more social races, and when they all, you know, like when they got up and left, that left a huge vacuum. And there are a lot of old villages that are now sitting in the wilderness, overgrown. And then the majority of Fae also abandon the Bright Lands, which I think you guys have only got hinted at so far. And then the stags, who you'll find out about also, but who you've heard reference to, as far as the Beast Kings. The stags also, they went with the Fae. So a lot of people, essentially the humans left, things went to crap, and a lot of other people left too. It means there's a lot of what used to be society has broken down. Which is a problem. But yeah, we'll get into that. All right, I'm going to put some highlight down here on the bottom here on the shield. So the inner edge here, I want to get, just like a sword, I think I want an edge highlight pretty much all around this. I'm going to take a lot of paint off my brush. And on the outer edge as well. Now I'll clean that up a little bit. Yeah, and you know, that's a lot like my stories. Gertie Cow. Celtic mythology is very odd. But it also is very full of nostalgia, right? About nostalgia for youth, nostalgia for... there's a sense of loss in Celtic mythology. It's very poignant. It's a very poignant mythology. Like, that's the thing that resonates the most with me when I read Celtic stories is there's lots of stories of people being pulled out of their own world and time and then being returned to it much later after everyone they knew is dead and, you know, the world has changed too much for them. Like, that's a common theme in Irish, I think, especially. Pop another highlight in there because that's we're going to have a shadow coming in here. Oh, yeah, Quindy, can we spam? Do a spam for Raceland of my author page. Or my author, yeah, my book page. If you would, when you have a second. I know Quindy is also working, like, her real job, quote unquote. But it's, the book is East of the Sun, and it's A.E. Becker is my pen name. And then, yeah, book 2 will be out the end of August. And then that story will be complete, but we'll keep writing in that world. Just because otherwise I would have had a 250,000 page book for my first book, and that's a big ask. So now that I know how hefty West of the Moon comes in, it'll take you a while to read it. Let me just put it that way. Best $4.99 you'll ever have spent. Okay, maybe not. Well, yes, best $4.99 because everybody else's books that are hugely large are usually charging more. Not everybody. Not everybody. There is one, at least one independent epic fantasy writer I know of who writes immense 400,000 page books and still only charges like $4.99, I think. So he gets most of his mileage through Kindle Unlimited, and when you get all those page reads from 400,000 pages, you're actually getting more than that. Yeah, no problem, Raceland. There you go. The right command thing, sweet. Yes, thank you, Agent Marvel. Thank you. Quindy's busy apparently. That's fine. But yeah, that's my stuff. I'm gonna keep writing it. We have a tiny little audience right now because I'm a baby writer and I only have one book out. But my hope is that, you know, we all hope, all us writers, we all hope that people will discover our books and like them. So far, people do like it. So you can read the sample, or if you're Kindle Unlimited, you can read it for free, no risk at all. Just, again, popping white highlights, coming in here. I'm going to bring in a highlight here. But yeah, it's a big world, and it definitely, I think, is going to count as epic fantasy as far as... I say YA fantasy, but I suppose it's more YA epic. Eventually. Like, I don't know if you could call it... I guess you could call it epic. It still has to do with dynasties. At first I was thinking these first books just weren't epic because they weren't, you know, save the world kind of books, but they still have to do with the Bear King's dynasty, so I guess it's tricksy when you start trying to figure out what certain genres' cutoff points are, since genres are just a man-made construction anyway to classify books, and there are lots of books that don't fit perfectly into their niche. Hey, it's Miniatures Den. Ah, Twistoma, thank you. Yeah, it's going to be hot up here too in the next. It's supposed to hit 90s by the weekend up here, Twistodoma. Hi, Luca. How are you today? I'm just trying to get this silly NMM working. Little blends, little stuff. All right, that's not bad. We'll work with that. Oh, wow. Yeah, really hot where you are, huh? Miniature's done. Here. Wait. Luca's too busy to go to my Patreon, so hold on. Hold on. I have a treat for you. Here we go. Here we go, Luca. This is on our vacation I just got back from. We went hiking in the mountains outside of Mount Rainier National Park, and there were still snowdrifts. So Kiki got to encounter her first snow, and every time she saw one, she pulled David to it to lay down on it, and then ate it, which is why you see the tongue, why you see her licking her lips. She's not a dog that feels very well in the car. Like, she doesn't puke in the car, but I give her meds so that she gets a little motion sick when she's done. So she could have done with a lot less car in this trip, but she really enjoyed the hiking, or she seemed to. And the other outings we did. She did not enjoy her first ferry ride. It was very loud and vibrating under her paws, and she was like, "What the heck is this?" But yeah, she did an awful lot of stuff. Let's see. Anything else? Yeah, lots of snowdrift, Kiki snowdrift pictures. And then the giant mountain farther away. Very giant mountain. I still like the one with the cars in it because I think it really tells you how massive that freaking volcano is. But yeah. So it was beautiful. It was a really beautiful trip. Just amazingly gorgeous. Keekster got to explore. She's like, we were out in a forest at a memorial, and she got to like explore around and do stuff. So, but yeah, so it's good stuff. Good stuff. It was a good vacation, Luca, but like I'm so glad I don't have another vacation for 6 weeks. The next one is ReaperCon. Because it was a road trip, it's just like, and even if it hadn't been a road trip, you know, when I've got 4 or 5 days on a trip, I'm just so happy to be home. Right now, I am just so happy to be home. Oh, this one makes its own weather at that altitude. Rainier almost always has a hat on, and it gets more hat. It starts out the day like totally shrouded in fog, and then once there's enough sun, it pops out. And then it starts to accumulate its hat. Oh, I can't do that anymore, man. I've done it. I've driven from Wisconsin out to Philadelphia, and that was an 18-hour road trip. That was the only time I've ever done 18 hours. And I was a lot younger in those days, Luca, and it still trounced me. But I used to be able to do that. I like road trips, but I like it if I can make the days shorter. Like, if I only have about 6 hours a day to do, then it's fun because I like exploring new places. I like trying, I'll try to find a new sushi joint wherever I'm staying overnight, and, So and driving for me is fun. I'll normally sit and take notes, like voice notes on my next book, and then, I'll listen to some nonfiction or something, or podcasts. I have a lot of writing podcasts to listen to on this next trip, so that'll be good. But yeah, I don't mind them otherwise. I get out to stretch a lot. Oh, yeah, that's evil Quindy. All right, so we're going to put a shadow on the top part of that groove. These swords are not that hard to NMM. Like when you've got one of the blood groove down the middle. I mean, that's why you put the shadow in here first, so when you blorf up like I just did, you can totally fix it. Blorf. And I want to put a bit of shadow on the underside. I'm just going to do it all shadow for now. I'm going to come and bring up a highlight too, but this lower edge can go into shadow to start with, all the way out to the tip. Just use the side of your brush, really easy. Yeah, fuller. Blood groove. Oh no. Oh yuck, Agent Marvel. Yeah, that's evil. But normally I do love road trips. I like alone time to sit and think. I'm one of those weirdos. So especially for the first part of the trip, I actually drive in silence. Like, David thinks I'm nuts. But he's gotten used to it in road tripping with me. I'm just like, I'll take the first drive, and I'm just going to, he can sit and flop around on his phone and his Twitter and his whatever. And I'm just going to sit there and zone and drive and think about stuff. But yeah, I do like the trips when it's just me. Alrighty, a little bit of highlight over here. Just like kind of touching up parts I'm seeing that need help. A little bit here. Alrighty, it's getting there. All right, let's get the top edge of the sword is going to be opposite. We're going to put a lighter gray up off on that whole thing. Let me mix a lighter gray here. I don't have one. Because since it's facing upward, that whole area will be generally lighter, even though we'll break it up a bit. And I'm going to take that highlight and do the fuller as well, the lower edge of it that's going to catch the light. I'm just blocking this in, lets you just correct yourself if you get all wibbly wobbly and you need to do something about it. But yeah, so, I mean, I would like 2 months to recover from that trip, but the ReaperCon trip is going to be brutal. That's going to take me months. That's why after ReaperCon, I'm doing one more trip, and I'm only doing it because my bestie, Bridget, wants to see Kiki when she goes to the National. The only reason I'm going, I swear. That and just to, like, show the other breeders Kiki and get her temperament test done. But man, like, I already, like, looked at David's parents and went, I'm not going anywhere for the holidays this year. Nice road trip. You finally got a nice long trip in with Sodoma. That's great. I know you've been waiting for a while. And when you haven't been on one for a long time, then it can be fun. Yeah, the New Orleans. Yep. Yeah, that's nice, Wendy. You can make it an icebox. All right, so now I'm going to use the edge of the brush. I've just got my pure white on here. And I am going to hit a hot spot in the middle here, both top and bottom edges. I'm going to edge the blade with pure white on both sides. I'll clean up that little bit of a blurf on the lower edge there. I'm sure everybody else, if they're working in New Orleans, is very happy to have somebody who wants the AC absolutely Arctic. But yeah, I'm just going to pace myself on the one to and from Reaper. David is still split on whether he's just going to fly out and fly home or if he's going to drive with me. The fact is I don't really need him to drive. Like, the thing is that I do like to drive. Like, I do trade off with him and we listen to an audiobook. We listened to the new Cory Doctorow book on this trip. So as long as I'm not driving, I can listen to fiction on audiobook, apparently. I just can't drive with it on. It's too distracting for me. But we did listen to the whole book, so, and it was good. I need a little bit of a white there. I need to make sure I've got my edge solid. This is kind of a flat edge down here. It's not a very sharp edge on the underside of the sword, so it's not looking great. So I gotta make sure it shows over here. The flat of the blade is very thick down there on the bottom, so I'm not getting my edging. We don't have a lot of room on blades, 28mm blades with the groove in them. That's probably the hardest part about it. So we'll just kind of get that going on. A little bit of that and that. We're getting there. Get my pure white. Kind of link up here. Make a good point for the light to hit. But yeah, it was good, but I'm happy I'm home. Happy I have time now to work on my book. That's what I've been wanting to do. And blend that in a bit. And then I'm gonna take that lower edge white and hit a little harder. And then straight, kind of like touch up stuff. I feel like I need a little extra drop of white in here. We don't have much time left because Luca's due to come back on, so. Just want my white a little stronger, so I threw another drop into it. Yeah, now I just got to recover from my Kiki related injury and my get my back in order, and we'll be all good. Yeah, it's a little bit stronger white, so we're popping that up there. It's not as thin, so I'm going to need to wet blend a little bit when it comes to it. And I almost got my knitting project done because I was knitting while we were listening to the audiobook when David was driving, which was cool. Lots of knitting time. Turns out I can knit in the car just fine. But I've never been prone to motion sickness or anything, so I figured I could. Hit that thin white line, hit that. But yeah, I didn't get all the places I wanted to get in Mount Rainier National Park, so we're going to go back, I think. Told David I want to go back. Next time we go up, we'll just go us without the Keekster. Because the dog can go in the park, but she has to stay in the car or on paved areas. So if we really want to explore, we'll have to go without her next time. I think ReaperCon will be pretty good for Kiki, though. She'll have to meet a lot of people. Get fed lots of treats, you know, the life of a dog. Oh no. So hard. So hard being a puppy. So we've got some alternating light there. We got to get our underside here lightened up just a little. It was my cowl that I was working on. I did not work on the shawl. I wanted to get my cowl done. It's the turquoise one. with the alternate, with the bands of like turquoise and blue and paler colors and some gray. Almost done. It needs another inch in width, so that won't take long at all. And then I can wash it and peg it out on my boards so that I can shape it. It's an it turned into an infinity cowl because I introduced a turn into it without realizing, and that's cool. They're popular. So it's not a flat cowl, but yeah, it looks pretty. I'm happy. I'll be able to work on the shawl more now. I've been trying to like not start 15 different projects, but just try to follow through to the end on each so that I can get more experience with different techniques and get them really solid. So just break up a little bit of that underside shadow. Yeah, I'll maybe I'll bring it on stream and show you tomorrow. I haven't taken a recent picture, Cornico. But yeah, next will be the shawl that I want to do. That I started it, but it was a little bit persnickety for the drive. I have to think a lot more for that shawl because it's I've got to count where the cutouts go. I've got I've got little markers, but it seems like if I leave the marker in place, I don't quite get the pattern right. So I have to take it out, stitch the 2 stitches, and then put it back. It's just a little bit more finagly, and I didn't want to do it in the car. I'm doing a circular. I have circular needles. For this especially, yeah. And no, I don't want to, I mean, the only time I can think of that I would actually reach for a double-ended needle, because it just sounds too darn complicated. But if I want to do socks, then I'll have to. But if I don't want to do socks, then I don't have to ever. So I don't think. Maybe collars, I don't know. I do want to do a sweater for myself. At least one. At some point. But the yarn is so expensive that I'll have to budget for it. And I want to learn all my techniques nice and solid before I decide to potentially wreck a sweater. All right, so that side looks good. But unfortunately, it's almost, yeah, the markers totally vex me. So it's nice to like keep them in place so I'm like got them. But yeah, I totally take them out. I knit the things and then I just slip them back in. I know what it should look like. I just noticed they were constantly getting out of kilter if I tried to knit with them in. I had to totally remove them because I'm trying to do like yarn overs to leave like holes in the pattern, and it's like, oh. And the yarn over just doesn't seem to work unless I totally remove the marker and then put it back in after the fact. So yeah, and then I've got another shawl pattern that I really want to do too in a different color, in a soft blue gray, which is my favorite color. And it'll require cable needles. So that'll be the first time I'll try that. And I'm just trying to like learn all the kind of basic techniques, kind of like I would if I was, teaching mini painting, except I'm teaching it to myself, right? So I'm learning my basics and really getting the foundations good so that I've got my yarn tension good and my I'm learning how to hold the needles and trying this simple, I'm knitting and purling and getting it really in my muscle memory, how to do those well with good tension and even stitching. And then I'll start adding in the other crazy stuff. New fancy yarn. Ooh, fancy yarn is always good. Yeah, there are just so many great patterns online on Ravelry, and I just have to like go. And then I have to stop and think, like, is that really going to look good on me, right? That's the tricky thing about a pattern online. So I also have a book by Maggie Rigetti, who's, I believe, Scottish. But the sweaters knitting in plain English is her basic book, and then I got the sweater design in plain English because I figured once I've read the knitting book and I've knitted enough, I should be able to like modify patterns with the sweater design book. It should give me an idea what to look for. Yeah, I like shawls. I don't often wear them, but actually now that I live out here, the spring and fall weather is perfect for shawls, so gives me license to do so. Yeah, I still have to pop a lot of highlights and shadows. We need to hand this over to Luca though. This is the Luca show now. So we got pretty good. Pretty good. Feel like I need brighter highlights on this side, but I always feel like I need brighter highlights. A little bit of a bright highlight there. Yep. So close to finished. I'll just do a quick touch up next time probably. The back of the sword is done. Everything is done except for this like underside, and it's pretty close. So next time we can do the gold. I'm going to decide what I'm going to do with her eyes. I'm just going to highlight them behind the glasses just a little bit. And yeah, then we're pretty good. I need to decide if I'm putting a little bit of a magenta pattern down here, which I was seriously thinking of doing, just to carry the color down from her hair and repeat it down here. And yeah, so that's pretty much what we've got left to do on Ms. Cathy. This was a good stream to get back in the saddle. My back actually calmed down after the first stretch, so I didn't need to do more stretches. We'll just let this go here and there. And I need more drama on my NMM on the sword, but we just don't have the time today, so we'll just have to finish that at some point in the future. Yeah, I'm happy with her. She's pretty. She's pretty. Tomorrow we go back to Miss Alien Face Elf. This lady. Which we were working on. I was showing you guys how you can do that cool kind of warm to cool color shift effect on with layering on the cape with the colors we had set up. So we'll have to figure out a leaf pattern for the back and how we're going to execute on that, and we need to finish this part. We'll probably continue with the greens tomorrow. Lucas drama. Put a picture of him on the backdrop. Oh dear. All right, so yes, there we are. Oh man. Oh, you guys. Crazy people. Crazy people on my stream. Thank you all for being yourselves. And for showing up. And I hope you enjoy Luca's stream as well. And I will see you all tomorrow. Bright and shiny. Drama alpaca. Not drama llama. Drama alpaca. Drama alpaca. Yeah. Yeah, take care, Luca. You have a good one. I gotta go take the puppa for a walk and work on her pulling habit. All right, y'all. Have a great one. I'll see you tomorrow morning.